Good morning, everybody. Jeff Rediger. We have a special guest, Marc Groom, that I'll introduce in a minute. Before I do that, I want to, for those of you that are new to the lines are muted, but if you do have a question as we go through this Q&A with Marc, feel free to bubble, which is the second one, if you're looking at the screen from the left. And you can use that to type in questions as we go through it. We get a lot of feedback when we open up the lines. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. And then, as usual, we will send out a rebroadcast if you'd like to listen to it again. We do that for those that don't have the opportunity to participate. So let me introduce Marc. Marc's a very successful financial advisor in Texas. His partner, Mike Byers, and himself have built a very successful planning practice exclusively focused on the federal market. We've been working with Marc and Mike now for over 2 years, and before then they were successfully running workshops not only in western and central Texas, but in Dallas, as well as the state of New Mexico, predominantly Albuquerque. And the reason that we brought Marc on today is because of their success. We've been able to now work with them with workshop seminars, and Marc, you didn't fall asleep. I'm getting ready to introduce you, but are you there?
No, I'm here, brother.
Okay. The exciting part about this is that, and what we're going to talk about this morning is the success they've had, but the challenges they found in the first year. Because as all of us know, getting the Fed market off the ground can be trying, just because of the pace at which a lot of federal employees work and their commitment to their jobs within the agency. So we're going to talk some about that today. Alyssa will be sending out an update of the schedule next week for the next 6 weeks of Friday sessions. So I do want to announce that. And we do have some other guests that we'll be introducing you to here on these Friday sessions. So with that being said, you see Marc's bio that is up on our website, and Marc, we're going to open up the questions in a little bit, but
okay.
Tell us what you've been in the Fed space 8 years.
Yes, yeah, 8 years. Mm-hmm.
And before then, did you have a specialty, Mike and yourself, or were you just doing the traditional senior workshops?
Yeah, we started out doing just the senior workshops, and then we did like dinners and things like that. And of course, that market kind of started closing down a little bit, just didn't have the success. And then so we started pursuing some other venues, and we found out that the Fed market would be a good space to really get into. We had helped some federal employees along the way, but didn't have the deep understanding of how their benefits worked and things like that. So we started, looking at ways where we could educate ourselves and have someone else educate us on the benefits and how they work. And so that's how we started working in the field. So about 7-8 years ago, that became the mainstay of our practice. And it has been since then.
So that first year, what was that like? Running workshop, you did it through snow, correct?
Correct, yeah. And it was, honestly, it was kind of tough at first, and we almost gave up on it just because sometimes you can run across some challenges, and snow just provided the workshop, but they didn't really, teach us how to really get in there and work with the people and make the transition from being an educator to their financial planner and so forth.
Right.
And so that's where we learned through the School of Hard Knocks. When we became associated a few years ago, I could see where when someone would come in, it'd be a whole lot easier because you guys do provide that training, that transitional training, where like Snow didn't. Snow just did the workshop, and so that was an okay starting point. But it really left us frustrated because we didn't have anybody to kind of guide us through the first process, the first year. Right. And so, for us it was rough. But then, like I said, we almost threw in the towel. But I was like, no, this is too good a thing, and so we kind of went through there and just learned how to do that.
So when did you? So that first year you running workshops. When did it become apparent? When did you finally feel like, okay, this is going to work? Was it at the end of the first year? Because I know you guys were grinding it out and talking to you. Just put your head down and said, "Look, we're gonna make this thing work." When did you feel like, okay, this is going to be a profitable market to us?
Well, initially I looked at it and I was going, okay, you meet with some people and sometimes they're ready to retire. Sometimes they're going to retire in 5 weeks or 5 months or whatever, and then some people 3 years down the road. But we realized that if we could stick this out, we could figure out how to make it work, that we would have people continually you create your own drip system. And so I saw that right away. I knew that, okay, there's a drip system here. And just to give you an example, I mean, we just closed $500,000 or $550,000 of stuff that we started 4 years ago. So this month, both those people just happened to retire, and so boom, I mean, here it is. So, we could see the big picture. It was just frustrating. How do we make things work? How do we get some of this stuff closed that we have right now in front of us? And of course, it was just a matter of learning, learning how to set up an income for them based on what their benefits are, and making those, using the TSP to move into an IRA to create income where they'd have more control and those types of things. So it took us about a year before I felt like we really got started, but we didn't have anybody to help us. So it was just the School of Hard Knocks.
Now, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when we met up with you guys, we started off using that just a lead program, but I could see the things that you offered were like, okay, I wish I would have had that because we didn't have that.
And then with the drip, how did you time it up? Did you follow up based on retirement dates? Their employee hiring date annually? How did you set up that drip marketing?
Well, what we did initially was, of course, we're going back 7 or 8 years, but it was just, I'd have a file cabinet, and I would put in the year they're going to retire, and I'd put their folder in there, so I'd have, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and I just put their file in there. But now through one of the FMOs, they had a system, and there were some other systems out there where you can actually keep track of when their retirement date's coming up. And we also keep them in a drip system of like a monthly or a quarterly email where we continually stay in front of them. So even though they're 4 years out, they're going to hear from us once a month or once a quarter, and And of course, then we also keep it in the system as far as, as they're getting closer to retirement, to make sure we keep up with that.
Got it. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: as far as production is concerned, and this past year, you and your partner Mike, you guys, it's all fed market. How much production did your firm do? Annuities, managed money.
Last year was somewhere between 13 and 14 million.
Okay.
And this year we're off to I think to even a better start. So and we're using the workshops now that you guys provide. So that'll be extra for us. So I mean,
yeah.
So this year should be good for us.
So how do you organize this? Because you're in Lubbock, you go to Dallas, or Mike does predominantly, but you go over there too, and then you go to Albuquerque. How do you keep organized with that type of business model?
Well, we have a full-time gal who's very organized, which is good, and we have another office one that she's about 3/4 time, I guess, and she's also very organized. But we use our system that we have, our contact system, and so Mike and I will kind of trade off, going different offices, but they really help keep us in line. And you have to have something where, calendar system set up where you probably the biggest thing is the follow-ups, making sure that when you visit with somebody that you get back with them in a timely fashion, like you would normally do in a business model anyway. But we try to get it where, if we meet with someone, we're trying to meet with them at least within the next week. And of course, these are, for us, Albuquerque office, Dallas office, those are 5 hours away each direction if you drive. So we try to get with them and follow up at least the next week to set that next meeting. Ideally, probably you want to do closer than that, but logistically, it's just not possible. But it does work for us. So,
yeah. As you work with federal employees, what do you find, and this is a question we get a lot, what is the biggest objection a federal employee would have to working with an advisor such as yourself, and how do you overcome it?
I think one of the, sometimes people just plain ask, why should I work with you versus maybe they've kind of used somebody else, or, what sets you apart? And I think, for us, and even if you're just getting started and you receive the training that you received from you guys, you can say, I've received training on your benefits. And most advisors in the industry across the board, I don't know what the percentage is, but very, very few have ever received specific training on your benefits. And, because I've received your benefits, and we're going to look at the overall picture for you, we can do a better job for you than just the average advisor, because we know how to integrate your benefits into your total plan.
Right.
But they're going to wonder why you're, what makes you different. Why should we use you? And again, I think it goes back to training and understanding of the benefits, and that's a process. I mean, if you're just brand new to this, obviously but the training you do receive in the first few weeks puts you, to me, light years ahead of just the average person, the average advisor on the street.
And a follow-up to that, what do you like about working with the federal employees in the federal market? What stands out to Mike and yourself about this marketplace?
That's a good question. I can tell you, to me personally, and for us, the answer is real easy. They are kind of creatures of habit. They've worked in the same place for normally 20, 25, 30 years. And so a lot of times they don't have a lot of exposure to there's nobody else out there to help them. And so, number one, you can be a help to them. Number two is they all have savings. They all have, some type of benefit, whether it's life insurance or they're going to have needs there, or they're going to have needs with the TSP creating income. If you put that in an IRA, obviously they have a lot more flexibility. And then number 3 is you will get more referrals from federal employees than you'll receive anywhere else, I believe, in any type of setting, because they've worked side by side with someone for 25 or 30 years. Every single week we get 2 or 3 referrals from somebody who's sat beside and worked with somebody else. And so you can have a workshop, or you can get a lead in, you work that lead, and you sit down and have the appointment with them. They go, man, no one's ever explained my benefits like this to me. Now I have an understanding. So they go back and tell their coworker. And they've literally been sitting beside them for maybe 20 years. And so they are very, very tight. And so you will get more referrals than you've ever got in your life. Yeah,
that's a very good point.
And also, Jeff, another thing is, people forget about this. They'll say, well, when I'm working, sometimes people say, well, some of these people aren't ready to retire yet, so what business can I do? It's amazing how much business you will pick up from a spouse, or maybe some inherited money that they had, or some other accounts that they have that you can help them with now, and then you help them with their TSP and so forth later.
Right.
So.
Yep, that's very good information. We do have a question. I'll remind those that maybe jumped on a little late, but if you do have a question for us, put it in the chat bar, and we'll address it. Brian Ambrose has a question. Brian's in the Bay Area. He said, when you're in a remote location, do you meet the employees in their home, or do you have a executive suite? And if you have a suite, how does that work?
Okay. That's a very good question, Brian. What we've done, and that's kind of a trial and error on our part, and depending upon what part of the country you're at, if you're in the Bay Area, you've probably got all kinds of places available to you. But Regis Office is a nationwide outfit that you can get a day location, or you can sometimes get those offices for a reasonable price on a monthly basis. But a lot of times it's preferable to do it in an office setting, because if you need to print some stuff out or whatever, obviously it's right there and you can do that. But number 2, you can make better use of your time. If you're going from house to house, you've got traffic involved and things like that. If they're coming to a central location, it's going to be more time effective for you. But I mean, either way, there's sometimes when we have met people outside the office, but if it is, we would have that as our last appointment of the day, and we're going out of town, or it's just the last appointment of the day, and we'll take care of that one as the last one outside the office.
But you have, when you guys started in Albuquerque, you used a office, used like a Regis, but now you have an office there.
Yeah, well, actually, in Albuquerque, we have had a physical location now for 8 years.
Okay.
And in Dallas, though, Dallas is the one where we started off with like a Regis. We just do like a temporary day one, and then we decided to go ahead and just do it by the month. And so we have a bigger office, and it's by the month. And honestly, it has a window, so I like it better. But it's we've leased it for a month. We lease it for a year at a time.
Okay, gotcha.
So you can do either way, but again, we're there often enough where it makes sense doing it by the month. So
yeah,
on a year lease.
Yeah, and I know that we use Regis for our purposes when we travel, and Regis has offices everywhere, and it's a space, and they do a great job. So it's very cost efficient, very effective for this type of business, because in some areas you could be going from VA to VA, and there's a lot of distance there. So it's a good question. Again, if you have questions for Marc here, go ahead and type it in. So one question that's very important is what you can and cannot do when you're on government property. There is no solicitation. So how do Mike and yourself make sure that you guys abide by the rules when you've been invited into an agency?
It's extremely important, because you can become uninvited for the rest of your life at the facility real fast.
Right.
They have we've done work we've done Secret Service, we've done the VAs, we've done Department of Defense, Fish and Wildlife, you name it. We've done multiple agencies over the years, but every single one of them is it's an educational format only. We never talk about products whatsoever. It's just educating them on their benefits. But what will happen in there is, if you know their benefits, and you're part of that scenario, the teaching scenario. Now, there's an instructor, obviously, when we do the workshops, but if you are you're there and you can answer a few questions, and maybe during the breaks talk to people a little bit and stuff. It's on an educational platform only. They will say, well, can you help me with my stuff? I mean, they come up when we do a break and stuff. I mean, people just come up to you and say, hey, can you help me with my stuff or whatever? And of course, they'll fill out a sheet at the end to request it, but you can't hand out business cards and solicit or whatever. But they will fill out their sheets at the end of those workshops, and they'll check the box to visit with you, and then that's how you engage. After the workshop, when you get back to your office, then you can engage them in a phone call, set up the appointment, and then go from there.
And that leads to another question. What's the percentage of federal employees that want to meet with you, check the box for a consultation or a benefit review?
I think it just kind of, sometimes it'll depend upon the agency and the kind of the part of the country you're working in. Sometimes we've had as low as 50%. Sometimes we've had as high as like 90-95%. So I would say somewhere in that 75% ratio or range is where you're going to be. And honestly, some of them don't check the box because they haven't done a good job planning and they don't have anything, and so they kind of feel embarrassed and so they won't check a box. But but I would say, for us personally, if I just look over that last 8 years for us, we're probably in that 75% range.
Okay, well, that goes to show you the demand.
It's huge,
yeah.
People are hungry for someone to educate them and let them know. I mean, because they've been working the same job for 25 or 30 years, and they just want to know, how these benefits, how are they going to work for me, and am I going to have enough to live on, and can I actually afford to retire? And they have a hard time figuring that out on their own.
So you mentioned something earlier. I'm curious about this. So do you find yourselves now, Mike and yourself, doing predominantly income planning? Is that what you're doing so you go through the analysis with them, and you're pointing out, okay, here's your pension income, the thrift savings plan, and your accumulation tools. Let's talk about different phases. Is that what you're doing as far as making sure, look, you're either you are going to be comfortable way into your 80s if you're healthy enough to live? Is that what you're finding you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, and I think eventually you get to that. What happens with them, my experience has been is they make so much, they take home so many dollars a month, and so and sometimes we'll start off just breaking stuff on a yellow pad and saying, okay, this is what your take home is right now based on a monthly model, and this is if you want to retire at 62, this is, and on the other side, this is what your income is going to be based on, your first annuity, for example, and your TSP, which you can create to an IRA to create income, and here's your Social Security, or if they're under 62, here's their supplement, and how that changes at 62, and break that down. And unfortunately, for some of them, that's once you get to that point, they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be good, But you also have to help. We also have to educate them and say, okay, if you live to you're 80, you also have to have a plan to create some extra income or to help with inflation, because the COLA increases and so forth aren't that great. So
and they're
but
not
unfortunately,
getting...
a lot of them are just like, they just want to know how much am I going to take home when I retire. That's all they want to know. But,
I've never run into a retirement counselor. I hear they're out there within these agencies. Have you run into quote unquote these HR people that are the retirement counselors?
Not really. I mean, most of them are paper pushers, and over the last 8 years I've been working in this field, they're just trying to get them in and out, and then the ones who have given them advice, they technically can't give them financial advice unless I guess they have a counseling title. I've never really seen one. And when I've seen them give people advice, it's bad advice. So
I know. I keep hearing that they're out there, but I have not run into one.
I've been in this 8 years. I haven't seen one that's...
No, I keep hearing, we have a retirement counselor that handles that. I'm like, are these people, okay, send me a photo or something, because I've never run into one. But that is, that is what happens. For those of you that are new to the federal market, there is and we addressed this a few weeks ago, the government's HR agency, OPM, in a law, actually requires these federal agencies to conduct financial education sessions and training. There's a certain number of hours a year they have to do this, but there's nobody within these agencies that's designated or trained on financial planning. So it's a very interesting process, because the government has passed a law tasking the agencies to do this, although the agencies really don't understand what it is they're supposed to be doing, and that creates an opportunity for us to support that initiative, and that's what everything that we do is based on. So, again, we got a couple more minutes, so if you have a question for Marc, type it in. I do have one final question, Marc. What do you see the future to be within the federal market? I know the baby boomers, the peak is next year. What is your feeling, working this market 8 years now? How do you see your practice, 5 years out, 10 years out?
Well, I think, there's a lot of people that are eligible to retire, but for different reasons, there's a ton of them out there that have not retired yet. And so I see this market still continuing to grow. I mean, we see our practice growing. This year, we believe we can increase it about another 50%. And that market's, it's only going to get bigger, I think, for the next little bit. I mean, they might say it's peaking, and I think that's maybe with people that are maybe eligible to retire.
Yeah.
A lot of the CSRS, the old system, there's obviously not as many of those left. When we first started 8 years ago, we did a workshop. We might have, 10 CSRS come to just their own workshop, and then we'd have, 30 or 40 of the FERS come. And now it's just kind of a sprinkling of CSRS. We just don't see those big numbers anymore.
Right.
So, I see this market still being a very, very viable market for a long time, just because for whatever reason people aren't. And sometimes people think they can't retire, and when you run the numbers, it's like they can retire, but they just don't think they can.
Right.
If they're making $80,000 a year, they think, well, if they look at their FERS annuity going, well, my FERS annuity says I'm going to make, $20,000 a year, and so how can I retire? But they don't. Exactly. They put away, $400,000, $500,000 in their TSP. That's going to take them, down the road a little bit and make it a little bit easier for them to retire. So, but they don't understand the benefits. So, right. I think some of them work longer just because they don't know.
Well, it's been an incredible marketplace for my observation with advisors like Mike and yourself, and also what we've seen across the country. And we're out of time. Man, that was fast. So, hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you bet.
And Marc, just so everybody knows, is in the next couple of weeks expecting his first grandchild. So he's going to be entering a whole new phase, and that phase is, all the rules that apply to parenting are waived. If it's
that's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that. And I was going to tell people too, if they're kind of new to the marketplace, Mike and I did write a book called Planning a Secure Retirement, and it's at planningasecureretirement.com. It's available on Amazon, and there's a chapter on the federal benefits, and it's a good resource especially if someone's kind of get started in this marketplace. So,
what's the website again?
planningasecureretirement.com.
Okay. planningasecureretirement.com. Got it.
And it's available on Amazon. So.
Yeah, that was my Christmas gift from you guys. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So for those of you who are going to be in Vegas, Marc will be there unless the baby arrives during that time. But his partner Mike will be there. And again, Marc, thank you very much. This concludes the presentation, and we'll get that website out to everybody so they can take a look at the planning book you guys wrote. So thanks. I know you're busy. Have a great weekend, Marc, and to the rest of you out there, we'll talk to you next week. So this concludes the Friday session.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.